Hi, my name is Mike and I'm here to read a comic. Today's comic is Giant Size Defenders, issue number 4, dated April 1975. Overall, this was a great read. This is an issue that was more driven by drama than action. And I know that there were some fans of the title who did not necessarily like this issue, and I think it's because the action scenes were actually very brief and, to be honest, not necessarily well laid out. And I'll discuss the art team when I get into the comic. Take a look at the cover. We see it's the Defenders versus the Squadron Sinister. And they're joined by a guest star that would be Yellow Jacket. And we could see that as the battle is going on, Nighthawk appears to have been murked. And Hulk is furious about this, saying that, you murked one of ours, we're going to murk all of you. So Hulk is making it clear, I should say, that the stakes are quite high. The cover is really well drawn. It's Gil Kane cover. This is probably the best action in terms of the visuals in it. But nevertheless, this is a fun read. The art team did add a dimension that I don't necessarily think another artist would have. And I'm going to go into the story. And the story is Too Cold a Night for Dying. Take a look at the creative team. It was written by Steve Gerber. This is around the time where he had initially started his run on the title, and I highly recommend reading those issues. The art team is Don Heck and Vince Colletta. Normally, this would not be a good teaming up of two artistic talents at Marvel, but nevertheless, they actually do make it work. And I think the reason why they make it work is that this is a story, as I said, is driven more by drama than it is by action. So, and both those men did do a lot of work in romance comics. So the kind of like that particular genre was a strength in plotting this story. And Len Wein was the editor at the time. Okay, so I'm going to go into it. The scene takes place at Lincoln Center. We are told that it's January 4th, 1975. It is kind of a cold, snowy night in New York City here. And one of the strengths of what the art team did is the atmosphere in this story is really good. This comic, this is what a cold and dreary New York night would be like. The art team did a great job in conveying that. So we see that there's a crowd of media here, and there's two public figures here of great interest. That would be Kyle Richmond, who we know as Nighthawk, but they don't know that. And he's like the billionaire playboy. He's Marvel's Bruce Wayne. And he's with his date, which is Trish Starr. And she's touted as being the face of 1975. And, just a kind of a beautiful model type young starlet, I should say. And here we see a whole bunch of reporters just kind of peppering them with questions. One of the things that I noticed is that Kyle Richmond kind of looks a little like Joe Namath in some of these panels. And we can see that Kyle's answering their questions. Again, this is all really well drawn because it feels cold looking at these pages. So anyway, basically what's going on is the press wants to know whether these two might get married. Kyle's saying, hey, this is a fling, not a thing. And Trish is saying the opposite. No, this is not a fling. This is a thing. This is a thing that can go far for us. So they kind of both kind of different romantical points of view. We can see Kyle, he's about to turn on the car's transmission because he doesn't have a chauffeur. He's the working man's billionaire. And it immediately explodes. And we can see the art here of the first responders showing up and then pulling the pair out of the exploded car. The art team, again, this is a really good job because while it's not necessarily the best drawn work of art I've seen, but nevertheless it has a feel to it. And I think, yeah, sadly in New York, car bombings actually were going on in the city. So we see that the first responders, they're talking about Kyle and Trish, but not as a celebrity item, but as people who actually were seriously hurt here. They note that Trish seems to be in worse shape than Kyle, which is not surprising because one of Nighthawk's powers is that his strength doubles at night. So he was in better shape to take this explosion than Trish was. And I think the first responders mentioned that there might be a problem with her arm. Okay, so then the two are taken to a hospital, we're told, that's on the west side. And there are two visitors there, Dr. Strange and the Valkyrie, and they're in incognito, so they're not costumed up here. And obviously they're there to visit Kyle and to see what's going on with their non-team teammate. The nurse says she hasn't been given any word yet. However, Dr. Strange sees a colleague of his prior to becoming, the doctor of the mystic arts. And it turns out that the doctor, Dr. Winters, he's the one who's going to be operating on Kyle. So then the doctor's explaining that Kyle is in good shape, but he does have some serious issues, mentioning that he might have some broken ribs and some internal hemorrhaging. So Kyle's not out of danger yet. And because of these issues, they have to operate on him. And Dr. Winter, he's about to go to that operation, and he asked Dr. Strange, would he, come in as a consultant? Obviously, Dr. Strange has been nervous about it because you figure it's been about a dozen or so years in Marvel time since Dr. Strange has actually operated. But Dr. Winters, kind of takes the pressure off of him, saying that, listen, I'll actually be doing the physical operation. I just need you there to kind of consult me and to let me know if there's anything, that you noticed that I missed. And Dr. Strange is fine with that because it kind of takes a bit of the pressure off of him. And again, this is all kind of soap opera stuff. This is stuff like General Hospital stuff. So, but again, the art team does a really good job because they do take good advantage of their experience in romance comics. So see the two doctors, they rush into the operating room. They're operating on Kyle. Dr. Strange obviously is very stressful at this moment because this is his friend here being operated on. And because of that, he kind of goes into kind of like a subconscious trance. And because this is a stressful situation, and because he has kind of a mystic rapport with the Hulk, he's sort of unknowingly, as we find out later, actually summoning the Hulk without realizing it. It appears that the two doctors believe that Kyle's going to be in pretty good shape at this moment. There's nothing more they can do. We see the two men, they're discussing things in the elevator about Kyle, and the doctor makes note of something that was of interest at the scene of the incident. And Dr. Winter says that he was told that the gasoline in Kyle's car was siphoned out. So when the car exploded, there was no gasoline in it. And of course, this is something that seems pretty odd. And Doctor Strange, again, he finds this interesting because it seems not right to him. And anyway, as they're discussing this, it turns out the Hulk, he bursts into the hospital. He makes a big hole, and this is like a cold, winter night. I'm sure that Ward didn't appreciate this air conditioning here, but nevertheless, the Hulk felt that he was being summoned by Doctor Strange, and he knows it's something about Nighthawk. So it wasn't just simply like a help come message. Hulk was also given the sense that Nighthawk is the one that's kind of in danger here. And he also knows, that Nighthawk is somehow ill at the moment. He doesn't know the seriousness. Doctor Strange calms the Hulk down because once again, when Hulk gets into that crackhead mentality, that's when things go awry. So Doctor Strange he calms down the Hulk, lets him know about Kyle's condition. He lets the Hulk know that this doctor helped Kyle out, and so by extension he's Hulk's friend too. And this must be scary as shit. To have like the Hulk, declare himself, your friend. So anyway, Dr. Winters is like, oh God, what did I sign up for? So anyway, the three are about to leave. And Dr. Winters is asking about who's going to pay for the wall. Dr. Strange says he'll take care of it. And then what happens is Dr. Strange and Valkyrie are carried out of the hospital by the Hulk here. The Valkyrie doesn't understand how Hulk knew about this. But Dr. Strange explains, like, during the operation, he kind of stressed out a little, kind of zoned out a little, and he must have subconsciously contacted the Hulk. So then the scene changes, and we see Hank and Janet Pym. They're in their stylishly fashionable 1970s living room here. Turns out they're just simply home watching the movies. But Henry wants to watch the news and see what was going on. And the lead story on the newscast is the bombing that occurred at Lincoln Center involving Kyle Richmond and Trish Starr. Now, Henry Pym doesn't know who Kyle Richmond is, other than if he's a public figure that he notices. But he knows Trixie, or Trish Starr. He calls her Trixie. And then this really kind of perks up Henry Pym's interest in the story. And it turns out that actually Henry does know Trish, or Trixie. And basically what had happened in Marvel feature number 5, I think, it says that she had helped him stop Egghead, and from whatever plan that he had. So, and actually she saved his life. So this is someone who's important to Henry at this time. He wants to see what he can do to help her out. They're suspecting that maybe Egghead was behind it, because Egghead is the uncle, and Trish saved Henry from Egghead. So that's sort of the connection there, if I didn't make it clear earlier. Jan is asking, should she costume up? Henry's saying, no, don't do this. This is a personal issue. This is a very personal issue, so I kind of want to handle it just by myself. And it turns out that Henry has decided to costume up as Yellow Jacket. At this time, Henry Pym had a number of different superhero personas: Ant-Man, Giant Man, Goliath, Yellow Jacket. There's probably something I forgot. But I think at this time they were pushing Yellow Jacket to sort of be the brand for this character. Okay, so anyway, so he's gonna suit up as Yellow Jacket and try to hunt down Egghead. He does have some information that he finds out later on that will help him. But meanwhile, we go to the Bowery, which is much different than it is today, where it's for the most part pretty gentrified. But back then, it actually was kind of a skid row for New York City. I have some vague recollections of my mom taking me to that area. But nevertheless, we see people that we normally would expect to see in the Bowery, kind of people who are like down and out. Back when I was a kid in '75, when I was 8, we would have called these people bums, just simply because that's what everyone else was calling them. So it turns out that one of them here is a Focus, and he's entering what was called flop houses. And basically, these were like hostels for, middle-aged, homeless people. I'm trying not to use the words we would have used back then because they were not particularly nice. But anyway, this individual here, he pays 50 cents for his bed. And I guess that's the bed for the night. It turns out that it's Egghead. And it turns out that Egghead is as arrogant as possible. And even though he is sharing a flop house with these guys, he's making it very clear that he's superior to them. And Egghead is also telling them that once he gets back on top and he's ruling the world, he's coming for these guys first. So you can see that this is very unusual, where you have the supervillain who's at panhandling point in his life. So anyway, the other members of the Flophouse, they don't really like this guy. So they kind of get a little more aggressive. Egghead actually is the one who throws the first slap. This was a mean pimp slap, though, from this guy. And he says he's not taking any shit. However, turns out there are other people there, and they don't like him. So the odds against Egghead at this moment are pretty bad. It's like 5-1, where 5 guys can go into one guy, as many times as they want to. So this is what's happening to Egghead at this moment here. And then it turns out it turns into a free-for-all here. And again, this is really, really good atmosphere by Don Heck and Vince Colletta here. It turns out they're going to stop the fight by getting the guy they feel started it, which is Egghead. Egghead's just being thrown out into the snow. He's complaining that he had paid his 50 cents for that bed, and he really wants to sleep in that bed. You figure Egghead was probably panhandling all day, and given his superiority complex, he wasn't very good at panhandling. So he probably had to ask people for spare change for like 12 hours, and he doesn't even get to enjoy the fruits of that 50 cents that he had earned. As they say, you don't have to be a Rockefeller to help a fella. So anyway, we go to chapter 2, Flight of the Yellow Jacket. So we have this mystery, and we have 2 groups of heroes who are going to approach the situation from different points of view. So Yellow Jacket is heading out to that hospital so he can speak to Trixie. And Yellow Jacket, he's kind of like, again, thinking to himself, and they're discussing a little bit about what's going on with him and the character. I don't think Marvel was using him that much in the Avengers at this time. I think they just started reincorporating him. So anyway, Yellow Jacket, he flies into the hole that the Hulk had made earlier, and he crashes in. And we see the nurse and some of the contractors here. They're startled by this entrance. Yellow Jacket doesn't help things by basically just grabbing and manhandling the nurse here, and just making all these demands on where Trish Starr is. Is she on this floor? Is she safe? Blasted! Answer me! Stop staring and answer me! Oh man, he is he is scaring the crap out of her.
I've got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Stewardess, please let me handle this.
I've got to get
Calm down. Now get back to your seat. I'll take care of this. Calm down. Calm down. Get a hold of yourself.
Doctor, you're one another phone.
So anyway, the nurse recounts what we had seen earlier about the Hulk showing up and Doctor Strange. And she had mentioned Doctor Strange, but Yellow Jacket is thinking that the Doctor might have been Egghead in disguise, there to bother Trish, who is his niece. The nurse says no, he doesn't fit the description, and Yellow Jacket's confused. He can't figure out the connection, if any, between that Hulk visit and Trixie and what happened to her. But still, Yellow Jacket, he knows the room number now. That's where he's heading. The nurse is calling back. Listen, you're not following regulations here. I'm gonna need you to come back here. However, when the nurse turns the corner, Yellow Jacket is gone, and it turned out that he had shrunk in size, which was his original power. I think at this time there were physical problems or biochemical problems with Henry Pym's ability to shrink and grow, and he, I think for a while, actually was stuck at the Ant-Man size. So he kind of wants to do this judiciously. So that's probably why he went out as Yellow Jacket, because he figures that if he has to spend X amount of time at his normal height, he's probably better off in this outfit with the gun and such. So anyway, Yellow Jacket's in Trixie's room, and again he grows into normal stature. He encounters a nurse who's in the room with Trixie. So again, I guess it's that kind of privilege that the rich and pampered have. Or maybe Kyle has really good insurance. So anyway, she's in this room alone. Trixie recognizes Henry's voice, and he actually does call him Henry. I think at this time, Henry Pym had released his identity, so it's not like he had a secret identity. But I'm not 100% sure about that. So it turns out what the doctors had told Trixie, that her left arm may not be saved, and it's kind of touch and go at this moment. So Trixie already knows that she might not be with this arm much longer, and Trixie also tells Yellow Jacket that she suspects that it's Egghead too, because Egghead had called her. He had told her that he's in the Bowery. He says, listen, this panhandling thing, it's not working out. The best nation isn't a donation from how little I get, and I'm going to need a loan from you. So I'm going to need some money because I got to get back into the world conquesting business, which is what Egghead was. He's a world conqueror. And Trixie was like, no, I'm not going to give you that money. I'm not going to give you any crypto or whatever. So they figured that Egghead probably car bombed her, out of anger, because he's kind of a spiteful little weasel. So we see Yellow Jacket. He's vowing vengeance on this. So he feels really bad for Trixie because she did the right thing, and she's going to end up in really bad shape. So anyway, Yellow Jacket leaves the hospital, and then it's dawn. And first thing in the morning, we see that Doctor Strange and Valkyrie, they're visiting Kyle in the hospital. And they're checking on his recovery. Because he doesn't have, well, most of the recovery happened at night. So he had the strength of 2 men. So recovery was a little easier. It might be a little harder now because now he's back to normal strength. So he won't have that boost to help him till later. Valkyrie says that, the Hulk tried to see you, and, they didn't let him pass reception and stuff. But Kyle's kind of impressed that the Hulk kind of thought that much of him. Doctor Strange wants to ask about who do you think is behind this car bombing? And Kyle can only think that it's the Squadron Sinister who would do this. You have Kyle Richmond, who is this billionaire CEO, and he's like, no one in the public hates us. And we're just beloved. So it has to be like, the Squadron Sinister. Because they're the only people who would possibly hate a billionaire CEO. So that's what Kyle's showing some of that wealth privilege there. He does point out that it's sort of a weird way for the Squadron Sinister to attack. Because this is basically Marvel's analog to the Justice League of America. So you have Hyperion, who plays the Superman role. You have the Wizard, who plays the Flash role, and you have Dr. Spectrum, who plays, who's the Green Lantern of Marvel. I'm sorry, I got a little lost there. So anyway, so it seems unusual that they would attack. And Kyle's also reminding the two that, oh yeah, those guys also died. Remember, we were there. This is issues number 13 and 14 of the Defenders. That was actually issue number 14 is the first issue of the Defenders I ever bought off the newsstand, and that was basically the climate change arc, where basically what is expected to happen to the Earth at the end of climate change is basically the Squadron Sinister's plan. Sorry for going off on that long arc. So anyway, Kyle has to recover, but Doctor Strange and Valkyrie and the Hulk, they're going to look for the Squadron Sinister and to sort of make these guys pay for what they did. However, then we turn to a cop who's very angry at someone. And it turns out he's angry with the Hulk. Because the Hulk is... he's here holding Valkyrie's Pegasus, the flying horse. And so the cop is, basically trying to enforce these traffic rules here, saying, listen, this is for cars, not for, animals. Particularly animals that look like this. However, the Hulk, once again, he's in crackhead mode. So, he's not going to let an authority figure push him around. So the two are arguing back and forth. The cop's saying, I have the law on my side. And Hulk is saying, this is my friend. And so the two come to a head. The Hulk grabs the police officer. He picks him up. And he's about to be really rough with him. But then it turns out Doctor Strange and Valkyrie, they come out of the hospital just in time and to stop the Hulk from causing any damage to this police officer. Hulk, he lets the police officer go, but he does it in kind of a comedic way here. Just slams him he just kind of throws him to the ground here on some snow. It turns out that Doctor Strange is saying, listen, we think the Squadron Sinister's back. Those were the guys that you beat up a few issues before, and you probably don't remember them, but you beat those guys up pretty badly. We need to beat them up again. So then, at this point, this is when Doctor Strange uses his mystic powers, and he costumes up himself and Valkyrie. And the Hulk just rips off the trench coat that he had been wearing, and the team flies off in search of the Squadron Sinister. And we see that Yellow Jacket is here, and he's searching the Bowery for Egghead, because Trixie had mentioned that was the last place that he had mentioned where he was. And it says that Yellow Jacket had checked hundreds of flop houses. I didn't know there were that many of them in the city at the time. And the doorways. And no luck. He's checking out the entire homeless population of the Bowery at that time. Then he sees a figure on the street, and he recognizes it from his physique. And it turned out to be Egghead. And then Yellow Jacket confronts Egghead about what had happened. And Egghead immediately confesses that he was the one behind the bombing. But the thing is that Egghead has an explanation that he feels will at least get him a little bit of mercy. And that is that he was the one who siphoned off the gasoline out of the car, because he didn't want to kill Trixie. He just wanted to, quote, maim her. He just wanted to sort of not necessarily kill her, but make her suffer. And as Egghead is making this case and saying that, listen, I'm not really that bad a guy when you really kind of think about it. Yellow Jacket, he's disgusted by what he had heard. He just lashes out on Egghead. And it doesn't make it clear whether Yellow Jacket had hit him or not. But apparently Egghead had slipped on a patch of ice. He's knocked to the ground. Egghead is making the case that, please stop hitting me. Stop being angry with me. Think about it from my point of view. I spent 50 cents for a bed that I'm not sleeping in. So, kind of consider my feelings at this point. Yellow Jacket, he's not buying this. He wants to give Egghead a beatdown. So, and that's exactly what he's doing. So he's finding a pretext to pick up Egghead just so he could say, hey, listen, I didn't hit a guy when he was down. And Yellow Jacket, he knocks Egghead unconscious. And then he's looking at Egghead. Again, this is really nice art, because again, it makes you feel like this is kind of like a cold snowy night in New York. So Yellow Jacket says, I've met ants who've walked taller. So we can see that Egghead, at this point, he's been neutralized. So he's out of the game at this point. So Yellow Jacket's kind of just waiting for the police. Then he gets back to the hospital, and he's greeted with the news that Trixie's arm couldn't be saved, and the doctors had to amputate it. And at this point, Trixie's still asleep, recovering from the surgery. So, Nighthawk knows what she's going to be facing when she wakes up. So Nighthawk, he's about to leave the hospital. His thoughts are about Trixie and how she's going to, recover from this. But one of the things Trixie asked him to do, Yellow Jacket, is to visit Kyle and to kind of talk things out with him. So anyway, Yellow Jacket, he heads for Kyle's room. And this is the first time the two had met. Kyle immediately feels a sense of, kind of that brotherly fraternity feeling. And he immediately confesses that he's, Nighthawk. He's also in the costume crime fighting league. And so anyway, Kyle's telling Yellow Jacket that I'm a member of the Defenders. These are members. And those guys, they're out looking for the Squadron Sinister, because they're the ones who thought, they had bombed my car. And Yellow Jacket, and Kyle's asking Yellow Jacket to sort of follow up with those guys. Kind of look around and tell them that, hey, you don't have to do this, because Henry had told Kyle that he had already figured out that it was Egghead who did it, and Egghead's been taken care of. And then Kyle, so then Yellow Jacket, he kind of parts ways with Kyle at this point. And then we see at a place called the Creighton Observatory, which I'm not familiar with. It turns out the Squadron Sinister aren't dead, as originally expected. And from what I gather from their banter here, they've actually just arrived on Earth. So in issue 14, spoilers, it appeared that the Squadron Sinister had been killed, but in reality, Nebulon had transported himself and the Squadron Sinister into another dimension. And this does come up with Giant Size 3, because it is sort of hinted at that the Squadron Sinister are dead. So that was kind of like a quick little turnaround on using these villains here. We see that they actually kind of enjoyed their escapades with Nebulon in the other universe, because they're actually discussing, not only are they like not traumatized or angry about being away from Earth for a while, they're actually discussing the interdimensional politics that was going on in the dimension that Nebulon had taken them. So they actually kind of were really living that life in whatever dimension they were in. But it seems like they're happy to be back on Earth, so they can go back to their task of conquering Earth. And Hyperion mentions that that they have the advantage of surprise. Since the Defenders think they're dead, it's going to be really easy to get the drop on them. But as a hint of irony, the Hulk immediately smashes into the wall of the observatory and interrupts this meeting here. So right now, Hyperion's words have been proven false by the Hulk's action, because the Defenders are onto them. And and the Defenders have the advantage of surprise. We see the Hulk pimp slaps Hyperion. That also takes out Dr. Spectrum. So with one swing of a fist, two of those members of the Squadron Sinister are taken out. Doctor Strange takes care of the other guy, the Wizard. And he has him trapped in these mystic vapors. So right now, Hyperion is kind of like, he doesn't have his bearings. The Wizard has been neutralized, and it's just Dr. Spectrum who's the one that's left free. Valkyrie identifies Dr. Spectrum as, quote, the weakest member, which I don't really buy. I mean, I understand that she's probably going to respect physicality more than, say, an energy-based power, but nevertheless, Dr. Spectrum is like Marvel's Green Lantern, and that would make him pretty powerful. It turns out the weapon that they had gotten from Nebulon, because Nebulon didn't want to return to Earth, so he kind of he let the Squadron Sinister go back, and he also gave him this really nice weapon that he says, can really take care of those guys. Dr. Spectrum uses the weapon on the Hulk, and the spores that are released from the weapon, they absorb the gamma radiation from the Hulk, and this triggers the transformation back to Bruce Banner here. Valkyrie is a little surprised by this. She's a character who knows the Hulk much better than Bruce Banner. I think she only encountered Bruce Banner maybe once or twice. So this might be the first time that she's actually seen this transformation. And she's a little confused about it, because normally after the transformation from the Hulk to Bruce Banner's actually pretty tired at that moment. This allows Hyperion to grab Valkyrie from behind. He gives her a bear hug, which one kind of turns him on, and two kind of like knocks the breath out of her. So she's unconscious at this point. However, he's making it clear that, you know, this is hard for him. She's making it difficult. And then we see Dr. Spectrum. He's using his power prism to free the Wizard, which is something that Doctor Strange wasn't expecting, because since the spell that Doctor Strange cast was mystic based, and Dr. Spectrum's powers is more, you know, kind of like physical based or physics based. He figured that, you know, you wouldn't be able to break those bonds, but he's thinking that maybe Dr. Spectrum's learning a little bit of magic here. So he's kind of impressed with Dr. Spectrum here. However, this frees the Wizard. The Wizard gives Doctor Strange a double uppercut. And that's not a move I would recommend in real life. Just do the single one. And then we see the Squadron Sinister. They're victorious. And they're going to figure out what to do with their captured foes. And it turns out, this is chapter 3. This comic book does follow the 3-act format, where Act 1 is all the introductions and all the information you need to know for the story. Act 2 was the obstacles that the heroes have to go through on their journey. And Act 3 starts when the heroes are at their lowest point, and then they overcome their obstacles. So at this point, they're at their lowest point, because it turns out they're in this dungeon area in this scientific observatory. I didn't know. Yeah, it has a medieval it has a medieval dungeon, I should say. We see Valkyrie. She's encased in a block of adamantium. So this is the strongest metal known. And she's in a pretty uncomfortable position here. I hope she did a lot of yoga. Doctor Strange, he's in a less uncomfortable position. He is sitting. However, his mouth is gagged with a steel guard. And because of that, Doctor Strange actually can't speak out his spells. So for Doctor Strange to sort of activate whatever cosmic switchboard there is, he needs to say the spells for them to be effective. And without that, Doctor Strange, you know, he can't use his powers. See Bruce Banner, he's just kind of hung up at against the wall here, in sort of like the traditional way you would see people in kind of torture chambers. And he's still unconscious at this point. Valkyrie tries, but she can't break out. However, Doctor Strange, he leaves his physical form, and he's sort of more in that astral form, which then he can kind of travel through the physical world. Although, you know, he's intangible, so he can't like actually touch anything. And he encounters Yellow Jacket. So the first place that Doctor Strange went to when he went to look for help, he went to the hospital. And he went to visit Kyle, who's in a hospital bed. This makes no sense. Well, on one hand, he probably should try to contact the Fantastic Four or the Avengers. But maybe the Eye of Agamotto led him here to the hospital. So anyway, the two are talking, and it turns out that, you know, Yellow Jacket was looking for the Defenders. So maybe Doctor Strange sort of sensed that that type of mental energy. And then Doctor Strange leads Yellow Jacket back to the observatory and back to the dungeon. And then Yellow Jacket is there to help. But they have one problem. How can Yellow Jacket get them out? of these chains, because his power set isn't designed for that. But because he's in Yellow Jacket and because he has sort of that disruptor ray, there's a decision to actually use it on Dr. Banner, hoping that the stress of being hit with the ray will kind of trigger the transformation they want. Because Yellow Jacket had told Doctor Strange that the ray actually doesn't do anything against inanimate objects. It has to be living tissue. So it's kind of like a taser. So anyway, Yellow Jacket, he agrees to this. Dr. Banner is unconscious. This is not consensual, but nevertheless, Yellow Jacket is aware of the situation, and he takes care. He does set the beam to its lowest level, so he won't do too much damage if it turns out that it doesn't cause what they want to cause. However, it does cause what they want to cause. Dr. Banner transforms into the Hulk. He's very angry. Doesn't like being like a crackhead. You get those handcuffs on them, and they're really ticked off. And Hulk is very angry, but Yellow Jacket explains that he's there to help, and that you need to help get your friends out of this predicament. So we go back to the hospital, and it turns out that Kyle, because it's at night, Kyle has the strength of two men, so he's recovering a lot faster than expected. The nurse is bothered by this because she doesn't expect Kyle to be this healthy this quickly. However, the scene is interrupted when a scarlet hand punches his way through the hospital wall and grabs Kyle. This is probably, I thought, one of my favorite parts. This is very reminiscent of what the Green Lantern would do. And it turns out that the Squadron Sinister are behind this. Dr. Spectrum uses his power prism to figure out where Kyle is. And what they're planning on doing is that they want to bring Kyle back to the dungeon so they can kill them all at once. So the Squadron Sinister, they're not interested in efficiency. They're interested in grandeur. They're grander. They figured that this way the revenge will be a little sweeter. However, it turns out the fist that Dr. Spectrum had created that's holding Kyle, it disappears. It turns out Dr. Strange was behind that. As Kyle is falling back to the earth, Valkyrie is on her flying Pegasus, and she grabs Kyle in midair. And then we see the Hulk coming into the battle theater, and he immediately pounces on Hyperion from above. And the two are heading down to Earth with the Hulk on top of Hyperion and just basically body slamming Hyperion to the Earth here. The Wizard recognizes the danger here, that Hyperion, they really kind of need Hyperion to be active in the battle, and he might be defeated at this point. So the Wizard is running down the side of the building with the idea that he can act as a distraction for the Hulk, and that would allow Hyperion time to recover from the body slam. However, this doesn't happen. The Wizard, he's interrupted by some ear buzzing that's going on in his head. He stops running, and then he slides on some ice, and then he is immediately accosted by Yellow Jacket. And it turns out Yellow Jacket had shrunk. He had gotten into the Wizard's, eardrum, and was kind of being a pest in there, and that was enough to throw the Wizard off. Then once the two men are standing together, Yellow Jacket just does this badass move where he just picks up the Wizard and just slams his head into a wall. This is a massive concussion that Yellow Jacket has kind of delivered right here. Now, the two doctors are facing off, Dr. Strange and Dr. Spectrum. It appears that Dr. Spectrum has kind of an advantage here. he entraps Doctor Strange in this power box that seems to be somewhat magical based. And Doctor Strange, he's really impressed with the way Dr. Spectrum is putting up a fight here. He's noting that, the cube that he's trapped in is soundproof, so he can't speak out the spells. This is some really nice, entry level magic work by Dr. Spectrum here. But nevertheless, Doctor Strange has to get out of this situation. And it turns out it's going to be the Hulk who's going to help him out. At this point, Hyperion had recovered. He's battling the Hulk here. Hyperion is kind of rubbing it into the Hulk here that he's the superior one. Again, it's that old Marvel DC thing, Superman versus the Hulk, so to speak. However, Marvel is making it clear that it's their strongman who is the true strongman of the comic universe. The Hulk uses his that ability to clap his hands and to create these loud sound effects, or sound waves, I should say. And this is throwing off Hyperion because now his ears are ringing at this point. And we see that the sound wave is so great that it's smashing buildings around them, as Hyperion is kind of being thrown to the ground by the loud noise. And it turns out the sound waves travel far enough to where Dr. Spectrum is, and the power prism that Dr. Spectrum uses is shattered. And once this is shattered, his powers are off. And then Doctor Strange goes on the offense. It seems like Dr. Spectrum had slipped. He was on the roof, and he had slipped, and he had fell. Doctor Strange cast a spell to protect Dr. Spectrum from being killed from that fall. But he does it in a way that it's quite painful for him once he lands, and he lands directly on Hyperion. So at this point, the Squadron Sinister has been defeated, and Valkyrie is telling Doctor Strange that he had taken Kyle back into the hospital. But it seems like kind of a downcast of a victory here, because I guess Doctor Strange is somewhat aware of Trixie's fate, and because of this, or maybe he kind of reads Kyle's his psychic state. So Doctor Strange is a little bit downcast. Valkyrie and the Hulk kind of don't understand this. Doctor Strange is kind of like, just being very wise, and just kind of just lets the moment kind of go. And then we see Yellow Jacket here, and he's talking about, he can't wait to tell this story to his wife, and he's saying, she's gonna be jealous about what she missed. Of course, she could have came along if you invited her. So anyway, we have an epilogue, and it's with Kyle and Trish. The beginning of the book and the end of the story, it's Kyle and Trish, and it's sort of like the 180 that Steve Gerber had here, because beginning they were very happy. Here they're obviously not happy at all. It was Kyle who's sort of like not treating the relationship that seriously, and Trish was. And it turns out that this is actually kind of a breakup scene here, and this is where Trish is gonna basically break up with Kyle. She's missing her left arm. She does have some scarring on her face. So there's kind of making it clear that Trish's career is over, but she still has a life. and she has to sort of sort out what had happened to her with the car bombing. So she's leaving Kyle. Now Kyle wants to continue the relationship, but the thing is Trixie doesn't, because Trixie feels that Kyle would be just kind of like pitying her, and this is something Trixie didn't want. And it kind of makes me wonder, was like Trixie's feelings that deep at the beginning? Because if Trixie did want Kyle, Kyle's making himself available right here, and this would be the best time to get him. If she truly wanted that, at the beginning. So maybe her feelings for Kyle weren't as deep as we were led to believe. But then again, it could be the thing is, if you love something, you let it go. Because Trixie does want to go. She wants to sort out her life. And she says goodbye. And Kyle's left. And Kyle's left alone. And this is the vision that Steve Gerber had for the Defenders. That these were lonely people. And that was the thing that kept them together as a team. Because they really honestly didn't have anywhere else to go. And in this story, he explores it with Kyle. But during the regular issues, he was actually doing this with Valkyrie or Val. And so that's it. Not a lot of action, a lot of drama. And this is a really good read. I'm going to take a look at the letters page. And the letters page, they're actually talking about issue number 3, giant size number 3. And there's a little action on the street there. Okay, so the first letter is just kind of great praise for the giant sizes. Like the first giant size was kind of like a filler issue, and the second one was by Gil Kane, and then the third one, which they're talking about in this letters page, that was done by Steve Gerber, which was, I think, his first one, and Jim Starlin. And they kind of go into some of the production problems with it. But anyway, this guy's really happy with the giant sizes of the Defenders. Editorial is answering back. They're really kind of giving sales pitches in terms of their replies. So they're saying, listen, if you thought those guys were great in issue number 4, we're going to have Don Heck. We're not going to have Jim Starlin. We're not going to have Gil Kane. We're going to have Don Heck on issue number 4. And if you love our giant sizes, make sure you buy that one. And the second one is kind of a few things about issue number 3. Daredevil was the guest star. He ends up actually getting killed in the story. Although he does reappear at the conclusion. So it was a death, but the Grand Master, who was the villain, was able to bring him back to life. And the writer was saying that he was a little surprised by Daredevil being murked. Him and Namor were murked by their opponents. He's also mentioning that Nighthawk's costume is kind of tacky, that maybe they need to change the color scheme. And he also wants Doctor Strange to be more snooty. Okay. He's like, please make this character a little more unlikable. And then they're kind of just talking about some of the things that Steve Gerber has in mind. So they're not necessarily addressing his statements, they're just sort of kind of touching on it. Another letter points out to some type of detail that was missed. And letter 4 is just talking about a mistake in the comic. Oh yeah, basically, yeah, the Hulk and Daredevil had met before. And the last letter is suggesting that that they should not, mentioning Val and Kyle maybe being a couple. And I don't know what they're going for here, this guy. He's also suggesting other heroes like the Black Panther, Black Knight, Cyclops and Marvel Girl, because the new X-Men hadn't come out yet. Mantis, Moondragon, Tigra as members. Yeah, so seems like the kids were happy with the issue. One of the things with issue 3 was that they had mentioned in the letters here that Steve Gerber and Jim Starlin, they had came up with such a huge storyline that they actually had to condense part of it by actually using blocks of text to explain. So rather than showing, they were telling, because they couldn't fit what they had written in that larger format. So that's it, and that is my review of Defenders Giant Size 4, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.